It's 3:39, and before Yiska breaks down in a fat freestyle, we're here with the fastest episode you've ever seen in your godforsaken life. We've
Famous
got
last words.
news from China. Do what now?
Famous last words before two
Yeah,
and a half
this
hour
could
episode.
be you. You tell us. You can clown on us if you want. Your viewers, audio listeners. If we're right in our prediction of making this a speedrun episode, but there's not too terribly much to dissect as the second phase of group stages go through. Swiss has just ended. Not a metric ton of surprises there. We have some news from China, which is very exciting, and possibly, as Yiska has rightly pointed out on Twitter, maybe some of the first teams to hint at OWCS potentially not being the end all be all. We'll have to see. But here we are. It's 3:39. Yiska, before we get into the deep, dark, dungeonous depths of the Overwatch news, how are we doing?
Pretty good. Had a nice run earlier. Generally hitting a lot of the road these days, and yeah, enjoying the great weather. I'm not sure what it's like for you guys, but I don't know. It's like the first great weeks, and definitely like the seasonal dampening is washing off of me, and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying myself right now.
He's running the sad away. Very good. Did you run during the solar eclipse?
I mean, it didn't occur here, really, right? Like it's mostly like a North American thing. Do you understand planet constellations? Can you?
Wait, you're telling me the Earth isn't flat and the giants aren't walking among us now, and we definitely aren't in an alternate reality because of the solar eclipse, and we didn't shoot missiles at the sun? What?
Correct. You want to know something interesting, Joe?
What's that?
I learned this week. So
Okay.
the moon is tidal locked to the Earth. Okay.
Yes.
We only see one face of the moon.
Yeah.
In, I believe, over 20 billion years, the Earth is also tidal locked to the moon, meaning only one side of the planet will ever see the moon.
See the moon, yeah.
It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, before then, like I think that's post, sun going red dwarf, but dwarf. Oh, here it is again. Yeah, I am again Germaning. What's the word? Dwarf.
Yeah, you said
okay,
it right.
Okay. Yeah, I can never remember if the first consonant is the silent one in dwarf or in gnome.
I was watching a WoW video today where somebody calls it they said gnome really weird. No, they didn't overpronounce the G. They like underpronounced the G. Gnome. They're like Nomi.
Nom?
I'm like, yeah, it was real bizarre. It's like I don't think I've ever heard anybody pronounce that word that way, but yeah, no, you hit dwarf. Yeah, the reason why we can't see the moon, you can call it tidally locked. Some people on, the free thinking side of the internet might just, claim that there are military bases on that side of the moon, It's where the aliens live.
True.
The men in black, who knows?
True.
I say
more
this
about your religion, Joe.
I say this because all of my normie friends have been sending me like ridiculous like solar eclipse like conspiracies where they're just like in 30 years, and it's always that like weird eerie like TikTok music that's like
yes, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's always and some of them, the craziest ones are like the path of the previous solar eclipse and the path of this solar eclipse actually adds to an intersection, and that intersection is a small town in bumfuck nowhere, Missouri. And actually, that small bumfuck town of Missouri has 3 vowels, and the number 3 is repeated X amount of times in the Bible. Ergo, Jesus.
Based. Sounds true.
Yeah, it does sound true. I'm impressed at the lengths that people will go to make some of the craziest,
that
things.
might still be more likely than China getting back this early to over.
Oh, he's here with the transitions, the lead-ins. But before we get into China, we also have to congratulate the brother in the bottom left, the brother in the bottom middle, maybe wherever he is out there. Kenobi is pogging out of control, but not as hard as our YouTube members because they make this show possible. They make doing the show feel good. They make it. They never block our sun. They're not some sort of weird military base on the weird side of the moon. Anyways, Battlecry, Refund, Bean, Bronze, Babu, Hal, Lulshin, Rex, Zane, Volamel, and Sugar High, and our YouTube members, IMDRW, Brother, Adamel, Ice, Jello, Fireman, and AK. Thank you so much for supporting the show. This is 339 beautiful, beautiful, wonderful episodes. And like Yiska said, China, we're back. We finally have Blizzard servers in China. They've come to an agreement. NetEase and Blizzard are getting back together. What a love story.
Crazy. I mean, they're not live yet, right? They're
no.
going
it's
to be
just
live.
Announced, and you know we have a direction. We have news. It's a positive force, and we have the fourth major region back online. Hopefully by the end of the year. Ideally, some of the players that we have kind of grown up within the Overwatch community, grown up watching. Hopefully they are still around and want to play. And perhaps maybe there's some Chinese orgs that want to throw some money at the Overwatch League. Maybe, I don't know how maybe this is a question for you. I don't know how this necessarily, does this change anything for the Overwatch World Cup? Or I'm sorry, not the Overwatch World Cup, the Esports World Cup.
I mean, theoretically, it would be too early, depending on what summer means. They might be able to finagle something in there. But okay. I don't know how they would. I think probably the EWC would be a little bit looser. I also don't know if they care that much, but I think it's a little early. The earliest I expect is just the second half of OWCS. But then again, yes, them missing the first Esports World Cup will be pretty big for China. That said, we also. It remains to be seen what happens over there in terms of third-party tournament organizers, and they are getting their own OWCS tournaments. I think China is probably the one region where there's a possibility of more third-party tournament organizers than just one taking over some duties. We'll see. Also what the demand still is for Chinese Overwatch over in China. Of course,
100%.
It historically always gave the lion's share of the viewership. So presumably there's some market left there, and that could potentially make it kind of interesting also for next year, depending on what kind of tournament organizers you get. And, if there's a possibility to have international competition there. I'm not talking about any, information I've heard behind the scenes, but that's that's one of the sources of the copium that you might have at this point in terms of more international competition, and just having a wider system is the Chinese market, and then maybe Japan, but everything else it's rather unlikely that a North American or European third-party tournament organizer would try to get something else going during the OWCS season.
Is there a world where the thirst for Overwatch in China is actually increased because of the absence of the game and the live servers? Is this could this be viewed as a homecoming of sorts?
Maybe. Wait, when was the cancellation of? What was shortly after Overwatch 2, right?
I think so. Yeah. They broke up, and
I mean, a lot changed since then. So the relaunch, quote unquote, could kind of hit for them. Maybe there's an effect, because we're in the episode with Chris, we talked about the thermocline effect, right? And how it is.
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's on the test, right?
Basically, thermocline effect being if you die a death by 1,000 cuts, then eventually we'll have one change that will make everyone leave. But if you take it back, it's not going to solve the issue, right? And there's a lot of bad PR, basically, or bad emotion left in gaming for Overwatch based on how the game was treated. And a hard reset like this could be one of the strategies as to, make folks forget that something like this happened, because the overwhelming emotion is that it's finally back. And if the product then is also good enough to, get people playing or keep people playing, maybe there's an argument to be made that this will be rather interesting in terms of how China develops specifically.
Yeah, I think ultimately it is a good thing that China, has some news, because this wasn't just an Overwatch thing. This was a Blizzard service. There was no Blizzard services. I can promise you that there is a strange influx of Chinese players, even in games like World of Warcraft. I recruited somebody to my guild not too long ago, and I was like, "Wow, your English is a little, it's a little slow, it's a little labored. Is English your second language?" He's like, "No, I'm actually Chinese." I'm like, "Oh wow, that's crazy to actually, see that repercussion that we've been covering for the last couple of years." It's like, oh yeah, I guess you don't really think about it. They don't have anywhere to play.
Sure, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I think you would just have to look at the current situation and just think that the vast majority of growth value would have to come from the Asian market, right? Like
Yeah.
Japan is
100%.
huge.
Growing, yeah.
Korea is a problem. There's not as much interest there.
Yeah.
But if China gets involved again, I mean, theoretically, the problem is theoretically Korean players count as imports, at least for other regions in the intra-region of Asia as well, right? So, which is kind of peculiar, but I guess it makes some sense. That could certainly revitalize some interest if that was not to be the case, and if they were to open up and there was more economic visibility for Korean players to keep going, and that would probably entrench once again Korean dominance in Overwatch. But I mean, it would still get a lot of resources in there. But I mean, that's putting that cart for the horse. Let's see how this all develops, and if there is actually still remaining interest within the Chinese scene. But I mean, at least we know some players have stuck around, and it's kind of interesting that they did, to be honest.
Yeah, there's definitely people. We're getting reports of people on Weibo posting that they're super excited that the servers are coming back up finally, and they get to play the game that they love, and everything's super super great, grand, and wonderful. Like you said, it is difficult to see exactly when OWCS spins up for them. If EWC is going to be, yeah, I said that right. If that's going to be a thing for China, if they're going to be included in that. I do like see this future where China kind of pops off a little bit, and there is enough of there's enough interest in a third party tournament that they kind of spin up their own thing again prior, in the interim of the OWCS. Like somebody goes for that grab. How much resources it'll have, how much, team sponsorship will happen, hard to say, but I think there definitely is. There's obviously room for third-party tournaments in China, but is there the interest? That is the ultimate penultimate question. There is, however, some interesting things going on in EMEA. Twisted Mind signing 2 Korean players in Vigilante and Kellen. However, per the rules you pointed out accurately on Twitter, they have to kind of ride the bench for a little bit, from my understanding, right?
Correct. So those guys played in stage 1. Now, keep in mind, the Asian OWCS Asia only has 2 stages for the entire year. So the stage 1 is the first half of the year, stage 2 is the second half of the year. They do not split into 4. So for the entirety of stage 1, these players are are roster locked, therefore cannot be transferred. Or can be transferred, of course, but cannot play within the OWCS. Now, this has interesting implications that they still went through with it. You also have to say that, especially for a team like Twisted Minds, there are a lot more competitions to consider than just OWCS. The obvious ones were the Face It League in order to qualify for the Saudi World Cup, or rather the Esports World Cup at home. That's certainly something that they, as an organization, would consider. There's also the Saudi E League still, where those players will be able to play.
True. Yeah.
And therefore, there is ample opportunity to play these guys. But if they were to play these guys in these competitions, it would also imply a certain deprioritization of OWCS as the primary tournament, right?
Mm.
And I argue that they probably should be doing that. I think they probably should deprioritize OWCS Dallas, also because it's not the World Championship and there's nothing going into, like, if you win Dallas, there are no additional points accrued for you for the qualification for Stockholm, right? So it makes it even less valuable. So what I think, or what I would do in their position, is to go all in on Face It, play OWCS with the remaining players in order to fill the roster and abide by the rules. Play Face It League, play Saudi E-League with a new roster, and try to qualify for EWC, and then just focus on Esports World Cup, which is presumed to not only be more prestigious, but also be more important and have higher prize pool.
Yep.
And it's their regional tournament.
Yep.
And you probably want all the practice time to build synergy that you can get against the Korean teams going forward. Because as we saw, I feel like, and I'm looking forward to that uncoachable Korea translation, it's going to be interesting to see what WAC, or Crazy Raccoons now, and Falcons are thinking about international competition. But I think Korea is still probably ahead. And Twisted Minds seem to kind of not rest on their laurels. It's kind of interesting that a team that was successful actually makes these radical changes. But I applaud them for it. I think that's a very good move. It's a bold move. And I think it's a move that communicates some correct prioritizations of of competitions as the calendar presents itself. And I think everyone will have to look at their own team, and I think we will see this implied in how a lot of these teams will treat competition going forward. EWC is just more important than OWCS.
Yep. I think you used a very operative word in that, being communication, right? Like all of some of the moves that you will be seeing have undertones that should communicate something to viewers. And for audio listeners, I think it's very important to just take a step back from the narratives and the ideas that we've held around Overwatch, especially within the Overwatch League, that we have one tournament and at the end of the tournament we crown a world champion. Now we will have a world champion in name, but will that be the same team that wins the ultimate prize pool at the Esports World Cup, and that is very likely to be the best team in the world? Hard to say. Do those things line up? They probably should correlate in some way, but I have a funny feeling that they will, but it's hard to tell if those two things will be identical. Be it a patch, be it team breaking up, sponsorship, whatever, right? There's so many different variables that could change. It will probably correlate, but it won't necessarily be the exact same. So you have this weird dilemma where teams not only have to, or they're incentivized to play well within the OWCS, but there is an ecosystem that exists outside of Blizzard's run league. Which again, if we step back even farther, if we zoom out a little bit, is there a discussion that we kind of need to maybe prepare people for, where the OWCS is just kind of like a parachute to soften the blow into the grassroots community, where this eventually will end? OWCS is not forever, and this is just to kind of inflate interest so that the third parties come in and hopefully stay, and then Blizzard just funds them? Question mark.
I mean, we're far away from that, but I think
Yeah, of course.
I think they kind of screwed themselves over by having rule sets that force teams to communicate an implied decision, because the roster lock situation is one that had to have been signed off by OWCS. The circuit points is something that was signed off, and now if the goal was to have team continuity in absence of team contracts, in order for fans to root for teams, it is now, even for teams that are not contracted and not Twisted Mind situation, they're now incentivized to have two different rosters playing in different competitions in order to maximize their win chances, right?
Yep.
And that kind of defeats the purpose of the rule, I feel, that was initially implied by wanting to have team continuity, right? So now you have effectively two, overlapping, but still different Twisted Minds rosters that one has to keep in mind as one looks towards these competitions. Now, OWCS is the more visible one because, who really watches the Saudi League, or who really watches the Face It competitions, as they're more low-key and there won't be a broadcast as far as I understand. So it's more like about the players streaming their matches. But it's still a confusing moment when
for sure.
There's a Twisted Minds that plays Dallas, and then a couple of weeks later, there's a Twisted Minds that plays Esports World Cup, right? So, and this has been going on for months and months, and then the commentators have to sort of communicate that, yes, they had a separate thing here going, and it's just an awkward Yankee solution that has to be forced upon these teams. And I would think, like, if the rules stay as they are, we will see this more often going forward. Now, of course, once EWC is over, that fixes it for the year. But we will encounter that every year as long as this rule set is in place and Esports World Cup returns, which we already pretty much know is going to be an annual thing.
Yep. And for anybody who is living under an illusion that Blizzard can kind of like mandate a global rule set, again, you have to remember that we just scuttled a $6 million payout to a number of franchises. Our league that we've banked on has failed. They have no leverage to try to make any kind of demands like that. You're happy to have anybody run a tournament.
I think they
this
want
isn't a Blizzard problem. Yeah,
they don't have say for EWC as much, even though I think that's a tournament that will still consider it. But they definitely have say for OWCS. Like, they still have ultimate sign off. So
that is 100%. That is their Blizzard. That is a Blizzard run. It's in partnership with Face It and whoever else. They get ultimate sign off there. But if Blast, again, hypothetically, if Blast comes in and wants to do their own thing and wants to have their own rules, Blizzard probably is not going to have too much to say because they're just happy to have people here. And if God forbid that isn't the case, we need to take a very, very stark look in the mirror. So yes, there is going to be a little bit of a continuity error. There is going to be some rough and odd immersive dissonance, if you will, leading into, from Dallas, like you said, from Dallas going into the World Cup. But it is a sign. It's a sign that people are prioritizing different things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And on top of that, great players are getting paid, and I love that. I would like to see some of the best talent in this game stay within this game a little bit longer. Their talent gets paid for, and they can kind of chase whatever they're chasing, right? Whether it be a championship, whether it be a dream of some kind, whether it be getting back on lands, whatever it is. Happy to see good talent getting supported. Ultimately, that is a win, I suppose. Anything else regarding Mr. Kellen?
I mean, I think like there's something to be said about the quality of the player, of both players. I think they're kind of like the perennial, unactualized potential guys. So that's something that they kind of need to prove. I also think it is kind of interesting. Like Vigilante, I'm more looking forward to. It's going to be interesting to see if Callan can actually actualize his potential. That said, it also speaks to the waning quality of players that Callan is legitimately the best tank that they could realistically pick up, right? Like Smurf and Hanbin are off the market. And then you would have to already go to sort of secondary talent in order to have, something to fill your roster. They could have maybe tried and gamble on Chase Torch as well, but I think that it's still a different skill cap, I think. And if not, then there's still a question mark around the Ukrainian nationality and whether or not he will be able to. So, like, do you want to throw all your eggs in one basket there? It's a little bit of a different situation for Ents. Yeah, who else could you realistically pick, barring getting Fearless out of retirement, right? And I don't think that's happening anytime soon, given the military service. So there really is. Am I missing anyone obvious?
I wouldn't say anybody obvious. I think obviously there are names that people want to throw around. For anybody who's a fan of WAC, aka Crazy Raccoons, shocker. They now have an org. It is interesting that I believe Crazy Raccoons is a Japanese org. But again, it shows that there are other regions that are growing in this weird vacuum after the Overwatch League. Is there a world where you gamble on Donghack over Kellen?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely one of the ones that you have to think about.
Could think about. It's a consideration for sure.
I think probably more limited in Hero Pool at this stage in his career, but it certainly has that kind of different, skill sets. I think Junbin and Max, both of them, would have been interesting. Once again, those guys are locked up now. So there's only so much I think like that they could have realistically done. Also, by the way, like Crazy Raccoons is a crazy clouded org. Like they're currently like the announcement tweet is sitting at 12 million views. Right.
That's great. Now,
keep in mind that this is probably just like a bunch of their influences just hitting RT, and it remains to be seen how engaged their fan base will be in their particular team. Especially once, they once again play those matches. I also it's kind of sad that they didn't get this, Omega troll entrance by saying like, oh, we've been sponsoring these guys all this time. Here's the winner, and just like announcing with the win. I'm like, I don't know if you call it the final, but I mean, Lib did his best to make that a reality. But ultimately, like, it was, for a long time, it felt like a blowout until it didn't. And then WAC looked actually like a interesting and potentially future equally weighted opponent. This match, yes, it's a different meta. It still makes me wonder how seriously Team Falcons was taking the previous matches that these two teams played against each other, especially given the handshake allegations on a composition, just running monkey. So I don't know. Like there's a lot of potential fraudulence in that region. But I think there's something to be said about how serious those teams were taking the competition, especially in preparation for OWCS Asia.
Right.
Because even in the final, they're qualified both for OWCS Asia now, right? For the regional finals. It's strongly considered that, I mean, unless it's Yeti, that these guys are going to be two of the, or I guess for the game, could also be the case, two of the representatives from the OWCS Asia region, because keep in mind, only 2 Asian teams go.
Yep.
I think, like, from the quality difference that I've seen, I would be very surprised if it was not Crazy Raccoons.
Anybody. Yeah.
Team Falcons, right? So
it really can't be anybody else. There is such a gigantic gap in between them, unless Max and Junbin just go full on owl shock style, just smoking that loud. Shout outs to the 99 red balloon popper. Can't hit an EMP. What are you gonna do? Like, you can't not bet on Crazy Raccoons and Falcons right now. To be the front runners. It would have to be some crazy meta swap up to like really make me consider. Yeti had that weird little blip where they were like really looking kind of scary, and then they immediately quieted down, like burned it from both ends type shit. It was, I don't know. They were a weird little anomaly. So there's a potential that maybe there is some batters kind of sitting in the bullpen, but I don't know. Hard to say. Hard to say. But yes, Crazy Raccoons. It's nice to see another org stepping into the Overwatch ring. I think that does add a little bit of fuel to the fire. Maybe we can, not keep this thing moving, but I always feel like as there's more investment into something, it does catch more people's eyes. It catches people's attention. It might catch the right person's attention. And maybe they want to get back into this little goofy little esport. Who knows? That being said, we did finish up a Swiss stage. Can kind of give a quick little glance and maybe do a little bit of pickage across the board for everybody. Let's start in, where are we? North America?
Europe.
No, we're in EU. We're in Europe. Okay, let's go to Europe.
Now
to Europe.
Yeah.
Staying in Europe.
Staying in Europe.
Is there anybody on here that is weirdly not, that should be on here, that isn't?
I don't think so.
I feel like, I don't think so either.
It pretty much went to expectations. Yeah. There are some new teams in here that weren't previously in there, but it's mostly like the bottom ranked teams that changed this time around. I think what it is, I think, who did I see complain about the Buchholz score situation? I think it was Whoop. Might be wrong. But Whoop would have to be North America, right? Yeah. So, wait. Schmangus is the content creator team, right? Am I wrong?
Schmangus is Zergy, QXRU.
No,
Boger,
sorry. Yes, okay. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. So, these guys got in based on Buchholz score, I think, with the, I think it was it 6-2? That was the lower entrance score. Then they had Buchholz score is basically a different form of ELO. I would surmise, right? Like, based on that, they just had a higher ranking and therefore got in. Was it 7-2 again? Yeah, it might have been 7-2. So, yeah, I think that's the only complaint that I saw, and it did look weird. I think there's something to be said about the Buchholz score, how it calculates ELO gain based on forfeits.
Okay.
Right? Like, there's something funky there that I didn't look into too deeply, but probably should, because there seems to be some fuckery going on in terms of like how it evaluates opposition when they receive buys. even from free teams, and how that is evaluated within that in that system. So, yeah, but that's like edge case. I think like reasonably, none of the teams that were slighted or didn't make it in based on that had a realistic chance to even get out of the groups, I would say. But overall, like SSG actually won all their matches. They were this time the undefeated team. So definitely coming back with a vengeance and wanting to sort of make a statement as being the best team in the region. I think there's also something to be said about if the Twisted Minds was to prioritize the OWCS, then it's basically a head-to-head between ENTS and Space Station. Because Ex Oblivione, while they once again qualified, yes, they are just like simply nerfed based on their loss of Chase Torch and also their inability to pick up other players such as Mag due to a disagreement in rules. So tough luck, but they still they will be able to turn some heads, and possibly if they were to win against SSG. It's going to be interesting. I think that's SSG's. It is the easiest group. I think one would have to say.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a pretty clear like XO and SSG make it out. That's probably the only interesting match.
Yeah,
is their head to head, and then the rest of it's kind of fighting for scrap. There, it's you'd be kind of silly not to. I mean, I think it will be.
I think Group D is easy. Actually, I kind of pulled that back.
Group D. Okay, I will say I think Abik, if memory serves, he was like the flex support for Wisp. Pretty good. Like that team might not be horrible.
Yeah, but just saying like there's a difference between having Ex Oblivione and Space Station.
Yes. The level of competition, that's where I look at Group D and I'm like, okay, the level of competition might be a little bit closer, so it might be difficult to make it out, whereas like it's very clear that like SSG and EXO very clearly are not under any kind of threat.
Yes.
Very, very clear picks there. Obviously, that's Group A. Group B, a one-man army, ENTS, Sheer Cold, and Team Peps. Could be a little close there. A one-man army has Avo, Wex. Okay, nobody that rings a bell for me. It looks to be either a battle between Peps or Sheer Cold.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to place a bet on the veterancy of Team Peps, but there again, you never know.
Yeah,
that one could get a little dicey, but it's pretty clear that ENTS is going to make that out, right? You'd say.
I mean, yeah. If not, I mean, realistically, it's all already kind of interesting that they did not win all their matches with Chase, but like, come on.
Yeah.
They just lost against SSG, I believe, anyway. So we'll see how it develops.
Yeah, for sure. C is Demi Pro Flexodiax. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Rockstars and Twisted Minds. Obviously, Twisted Minds makes it out. That would be a joke. Then it's kind of a toss-up. Obviously, per the standings, Demi Pro does have like a weird placement at 6th for a bunch of like players that I've never really heard of, but that could just be my ignorance in the EU region. Is this a team on the come up? It's a possibility. Certainly could be. Could they have an easy side of the bracket for Swiss and snuck through with some good wins? Who knows? Flexo, again, not a lot of players I'm familiar with. And then Rockstars. Again, it's kind of a toss up. Who would you go with? The higher ranked, or you want to place a bet?
No, I think I would like in the absence of other input, I will always go with a higher seed, right?
Yeah. So Twisted Minds and Demi Pro.
The Imperio?
The Imperio. Wow. Dyslexia hitting actually
Impero? Impero? There's no
the Impero, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. The Impero. Maybe that's Latin.
I think,
I don't know.
maybe.
It's definitely closer than what I was saying. So let's run with that. Group D, Ataraxia, Oh Yeah, Meta Boys, and Team ABQ. This one's tough.
Yeah, this is kind of a toss-up. I wonder how these teams played against each other in the bracket. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of them
If there was any
probably
head-to-heads.
already had head-to-head, so that should give an indication. But yeah,
you know what I find super interesting? There's a part of me that wants the broadcast to get an Ataraxia SSG head-to-head, where you can kind of spin up like the Danid, like, oh, he was kicked from this team like during British Hurricane, and he could be in SSG if they would have kept him, and blah, 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 blah. Like, you can spin that up a little bit. I feel like that would be cool. Obviously, there's some history with like Sauna and Shax with some of these players. They've played either with or against each other for a number of years. Like, there's a lot of history in that. Is that enough to make it out, though? With the absolute trap team that is Oh Yeah, who just does anything and everything and somehow is just in every tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, they're never amazing, but they're around. They're dangerous too. They will challenge you to play their game.
Yep.
A little bit of a trick team, but my guess would be Ataraxia, and I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Team Peak. That would be my two guesses. What you think? Go with that?
Yeah, sure.
All right. EU. Done. Let's go NA. Will Seeker make it anywhere? Is the question. Group A. We've got Dill Ducks, Toronto Defiant, Visored? Viso Red? Visored, right?
Visored, of course.
Visored, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. And who is Goldfish? Kind of have to go with Toronto, and do we go Dill Ducks because they're higher seeded?
Brother, like, yeah. I honestly, like,
does it matter?
I ever care about anyone else but M80 and Toronto and maybe Timeless and maybe Luminosity, to be fair. Those are the four teams I'm looking at, but really mostly Toronto Defiant and M80. I just expect those four teams to make it into the next bracket stage.
Pretty much, yeah. Everything else will be a surprise.
Yeah. Who's on Ducks? Can you?
That is Tristan, Riser, Emran, Crime, Baz, Red X, Bagel, and Frothy Philly 7.
Are there any other known players on no-name teams?
Obviously FMCL is Seeker's team with Maimone, Lep, and Renko. Citrus Nation has Lethal playing for them, and they were actually pretty solid last group stage. Surprisingly good. I did notice that Timeless Nightmare on the Faceit page did have some very interesting names, but they're not listed on Liquipedia, so we're gonna sans any kind of discussion there. And then the rest of it, like Cowman's playing for like O3 Splash. Magic Mate Ball's on Pirates in Pajamas. Zolik, if you remember him. Like, it's not crazy.
Wait, who did you say had weird people on there?
Timeless Nightmare, I believe, had Jake, SK, and Uma.
I mean, they can't. SK is already you.
That's why I'm like, okay, something about this isn't necessarily right. So I wasn't entirely too sure.
One. Faceit.
It was something bizarre.
Gotcha.
Standings, matches.
Nightmare rotate. Okay. Yeah, nothing I recognize here based on the most recent update.
Maybe I was looking at an old page. Who knows?
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Using RD.
Ignore me. Yeah, no. I think in general the top four teams are pretty cut and dry. Anything else would be a surprise. I think there's definitely room for Timeless to kind of win you over. I thought they really looked quite solid last stage, and I think Rocket's really growing on me. I think that whole team has a lot to prove and can be pretty competitive. Are they going to upset M80 in a possible playoff situation again? It's a little tougher with Happy and Pelican, riding your coattails now instead of, Hydron. It's not easy. Obviously those are some pretty big upgrades, so remains to be seen. But that's definitely a possibility. Luminosity also could be kind of competitive. We'll see. Obviously Korea is not really happening, but we did get results from the wild card. Shocker. Yeti went 6-0, kind of cleaning up a little bit. That's pretty much it. Is Pacific's over, Korea's over.
Yeah.
We got China news. Yeah, speedrun, guys. I don't know what to tell you. There's just not much happening. We'll get the first glimpses of the meta sometime soon, right? These games will be kicking up here. When about EU starts? Yeah, tomorrow.
I guess there's some
today.
update on the defense matrix stuff, right?
Yeah, there's ladder stuff. You can avoid more players. Oh, that was the cold open. I was gonna do some weird, funny cold open where this is like the most avoided podcast. Something like that. I don't know. Completely forgot about that. But yes, more avoid slots. You can play with all your friends, no matter the rank, but your increase in like rating will be stymied by how far away you are from one another in terms of rank. Defense matrix, the voice chat protocols that Blizzard has in place has a little bit more clarity to it and has some more information. Go check that out if that's interesting to you. Yeah, I think this is the most communication we've had in a long time, and I think that that's the ultimate win here, is that the devs are actively communicating, they're talking, they're getting people excited about the game, and that ultimately is a win. You can't really have an esport if your game's dead, and it's pretty clear that Overwatch is making changes and is trying to cultivate a pretty active audience, and I feel like the game's pretty healthy as it stands. I think a lot of people have had some glowing reviews of where the game sits right now. Everybody's having fun. Everybody loves the new hero and Venture, and yeah, all good things. Yeah. Anything from that kind of caught your eye?
I mean, that in particular, no, not really. I think it's good to see that kind of improvement just continuously happening. But yeah, like I talked this week to I think it's the CEO of Vitality, Team Vitality, which is, I mean, if you're an Overwatch Esports follower, you might not know them, but it's one of the larger and most successful esports organizations on the planet. It's a French team. They're mostly known for in CS. They won the major before the last. They have the CS legend Zaiwu on their roster. You might also recognize them from Rocket League, where they have a young prodigy that basically wins everything called Zen. And then they are also in League of Legends and Valorant. Or rather, are they in League of Legends right now? Yeah. But basically, like, I talked to him about why he invested in StarCraft and not Overwatch. And the unfortunate case is that it doesn't really click, and it's not like they are very value focused in terms of the optics of the scene. It's interesting to talk to him. Like, not sure if he doesn't care that much about the revenue structures in each scene, but it's about reception, about opportunity, and it's about also viewability. Like, one of the reasons he gave me why as to not invest in Overwatch was, of course, it was previously ridiculously overpriced, and they didn't think that was
of course
really represented in the market. But he also said, like, it's kind of hard to get esports, and it's a hard sell in that regard, and it doesn't make sense for them, and even judging from the tone of what he told me, I don't think they're really interested in looking at it going forward either. So They are in multiple. So they are in LEC. They are in CS, of course, one of the best teams. They are in Rocket League, Valorant, Call of Duty Mobile. What's this? Rising Bees? Brother, I've never heard of that. EAFC, okay, that's fair. I think they partnered with a sports team there. Rising Bees is that League of Legends? Ah, that's League of Legends.
The Wild
team.
Rift.
Yes, no. It's their women's team for League of Legends, which is its own because their fans are called bees, or hornets rather. So therefore, Rising Bees. That's I should have realized, but basically that there's a whole thing right now about game changes, League of Legends. Anyway, I think Mid Lions just let go of their team because Bright didn't really, signal anything going forward there. But yeah, it kind of hurts to see such a accomplished organization, especially in Europe, talk about Overwatch like this. Also because, once upon a time, French Overwatch was on top of the world, right?
Super big, super popular. I mean, I have to imagine at that kind of fever pitch of having, EU being this like kind of hub for all things Overwatch, so like circa 2016, 2017, very pre-Owl. I have to imagine that Vitality had their, was kicking some rocks around over here, seeing what was up, who might have been interested, at least getting a lay of the land and doing some research as to wonder if this was a game for them. Sadly, it's not as it stands right now from the sounds of it. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that this is going to be a growth kind of oriented market, that it's, an expense, like how to put it, like it's not going to be something that you're going to see an immediate return on, which in this market, I don't hate anybody who's like, yeah, we can't really just burn any more money right now. And it's just not going to be a game for everybody. I feel like it would be a different story if there was like a French super team that was absolutely crushing it, and Vitality might be a little bit more, charitable to that, might be open to it a little bit more. It aligns with something about what they represent or like their home base, whatever it might be. And then my third point, it's like that could be open to change. If Overwatch does grow, and again, this is like Giga Cope, trust me and believe I understand. But if it does grow, I do think that orgs will reconsider, right? If there is something here and there is potential and there is, something to be given to an organization, people will change their mind. Will Vitality change their mind? Who knows? Hard to say.
Yeah.
But this does kind of set I won't say that this Vitality C-level person spoke for the entirety of the market, but they kind of did, right? Like, this is probably near or neighboring some of the opinions that other organizations have had, and that's the reason why they haven't necessarily pulled any triggers just yet. Will that change? We'll have to wait and see. Hard to tell. But it is a sobering thing to kind of hear somebody kind of like lay it out. Like, StarCraft, it's cheaper. There is an established way to watch it. It has history. It has a fan base that's really interested in it. Overwatch, you just got the reset. You just got the table flipped, So it's hard to tell. And I get it. I think it's understandable. I think it's smart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see.
So, yeah, it's a waiting game. In one sense, we have Vitality saying that they aren't interested, but then we have a team like Crazy Raccoons coming in, and we have who else, like Ents coming in, and it feels like every month there's like a solid team getting signed, which is a good sign. That's a really confidence building thing to have happen. So we'll wait and see.
Bottom line being, the future of all Overwatch is basically on the Asian continent, if at all, right?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely is. That's for the foreseeable future. That's where the hubs are going to be. You're going to want to be playing there. Was that ever I feel like that's just not weird for us. I won't speak for you, but that I don't know. That's not weird for me. Like I want to watch good Overwatch. I want to watch like the best Overwatch. So I'm gonna go watch Korea. I might even watch China just because I'm a little edgelord. I'm a little like hipster. I want to watch something different, some weird shit going on over there. And yeah, I'm not really all that interested in NA these days.
I mean, still interested in the higher matches, but yeah, currently,
yeah, of course, yeah, playoffs is interesting, but
there's just way more personality in Europe right now as well, which makes it just more interesting.
Definitely,
right? Yep, like
100%.
EU is cooking. They have some solid teams going in, and yeah, I think Europe, in terms of entertainment value, if you want Western teams, clearly the more interesting scene right now.
It's true. I will say I'm keeping my eyes peeled. God forbid a space station and an exo game come up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They are in the same group, Group A. I wonder if there's going to be any references to anything that has happened recently. Any inflammatory remarks regarding any kind of rule interpretation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be interesting. Could be a little dramatic. That's how you do it. Exactly. We will see. Anything you've been up to? Anything? We got some time. What you been doing?
Yeah, I actually am planning 2 new video formats. One's a little further. The other one, I thought. Yeah, I mean it's fair enough. Like I think it's a solid idea, but like one of the people I wanted to do with sort of, I mean, admittedly, is super busy, so we'll have to reconsider like the options in terms of like how I will host this. But like basically the idea behind both formats is one will provide solutions, the other one will be mindless debates and shitting on things in some way. The good and evil of, and of course the discussion and a quote unquote debate show will do better than the solutions one, because I mean we're built like that with the bug in human code. But yeah, that's basically what I'm looking forward to. But I'm also excited about the solutions format. I think it's a more productive format. I hope it finds a lot of resonance, because it's there's a decent amount of effort and thought put into it. So we'll see how it goes going forward.
Okay. You just can't escape a debate show, huh? You just you thought you got enough with the sideshow debates.
It's just,
and here we are.
Why is everyone so soyed up in this scene? And nobody, like in esports at large, why is nobody getting on calls disagreeing with each other? Why is every freaking podcast a hug box where folks just agree, like no egos get hurt? Like I'm not even saying that I want to have fights with people, but I want to have healthy disagreements with some spice in there. Keep in mind, like once again, I'm likely doing this for my employer, so don't expect like blood sports.
Crazy. Yeah.
But like just like disagreements, like think of like me talking to a player saying, "Brother, full elo resets are not it," right? Like that; those make no sense, right? And then going back and forth there, stuff like that, to in order to establish a baseline. Maybe I wish the YouTube algorithm would not discriminate against the word die. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe in a German sense it does.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So otherwise, like it would be an easy like die on my hill type of
type of title. Okay.
Yeah. So either I would put up like the respawn point on the hill and would challenge anyone for me to go head to head on this respective topic. Or like if I see someone utter a statement that I did disagree with, I would reach out to them in order to discuss it, right? And it doesn't have to be super hostile. I just want to, cash in on some Kahneman, once again, Eric probably already eye rolling, but what's it called? Collaborative disagreements in terms of like just when you argue against someone with some emotional involvement, you unlock a couple of more IQ points, making both arguments better, right? In the long run.
Sure.
And coming back to better conclusions some way. And I mean, it's also entertaining to say that much. I'm getting an F in the group chat from Eric for that one. But yeah. F to pay respects for Kahneman, of course.
That's right.
Adversarial collaboration, of course. Once again, goated concept that I experience quite often.
It's true. As somebody who has ventured into the ring with one Sasha, Yiska out Heinisch, I do feel smarter. Have I leached IQ from you? Possibly.
I mean, I'm losing every day. I'm losing.
You're just a giver. At heart, you are just a tender little boy who just enjoys giving adversarial collaboration to anybody who's asking.
It's not just that. I'm also just losing to environment at the moment, okay? Like, I'm losing the PvE.
You're losing PvE.
Like, the entropy of my body is just winning at the moment, okay? Like, I'm running a lot, but I'm also, Jesus Christ, am I shoving down food at the moment. And I'm not sleeping well, and it's not.
It's not good.
I'm not at my
You're
best.
dying to creeps, bro.
Yes, I am. I'm
definitely bad.
Yeah, definitely getting.
You recalled off the map.
Yeah.
Oh, no bueno. Can't have that.
Yeah. That one, we'll bring it back. I'll clean up.
Yeah,
my
summer's
diet
coming up.
bit.
You're gonna have to. You're gonna be running, and you're not gonna feel so good after these runs.
Brother, like I'm just telling the younger crowd, like Elo Decay is crazy. Okay, keep it up. Keep it up. Like yeah. Some things get easier, things get harder.
Sure, yeah. If life was a competitive ladder, would life just be performance based rating? Like your health, your vitality, is that just not like performance based, like Elo?
No, I think it would probably be mostly about getting the best aimbot, as in like the best beauty surgeon. I once again like read a paper that said like more attractive lawyers get more favorable rulings by judges. That's what it's about. Maybe I'll just gotta all in my.
You really are a little mod of r/Muse and Face Max, right? Like you just really on your facial symmetry arc.
No, I'm just drumming the drum of future common topics that will be discussed. Because I mean, there's some genuine privilege there that I'm interested in.
Sure.
And yeah, I don't know. I also therefore discriminate way less based on people. I think like most people that speak against plastic surgery are probably just jealous. If it's not, too much.
Yeah, anybody who's out here like, I can't believe you would do that. It's so weird. Why would you do that to your body? I feel like there's so many instances where it solves like insecurities, or it could be a solution to like a procedure or health problem that has, diminished parts of somebody's body, like, or it could just be a lack of genetics that they just don't feel comfortable about. That's okay.
Let me ask you this, Joe. Because we're both boys that lost some weight over the last couple of years, right?
Sure.
Did you notice that people interact differently with you?
No, because I don't really interact with people.
I mean, okay, one thing, I guess I don't know if you want to disclose that, but like there's at least one larger point where you had some success. There
is some success to be had, 100%. I would attribute that more to a combination of feeling better about myself, but also actively being in therapy and discussing that and finding roots to things and kind of dusting things off and, getting out there and experimenting like a good little scientist. And you know, results have been good so far. But yeah, no, it wasn't a thing of like, oh my god, now I'm getting, you know, so many, you know, it wasn't like an overnight kind of, you know, solution to that, but I think it is correlated, but it's not the ultimate cause. I think that without other catalysts, that like venturing out of my home does not happen, you know?
Sure. I think, like, for me, it was a night and day difference how the world interacted with me when I lost weight. And also, I mean, focused a little bit more on grooming. I would say was also part of it. And
Sure.
reconnected. I think, like, it for a while there was even some resentment in me that this was a true fact about how the world interacts, and how the world interacts with me, right? Like that this is such a decision making difference maker, because like realistically I did not change really in my personality much, right? So
No, just how you looked,
yeah,
which is very shallow, but you know, it's the ultimate the lie that society wants to kind of propagate. That, I mean, it maybe not a lie in the sense that they're active participants in it, but I think there is like some subconscious thing where it's just like you do treat, you know, beautiful people a little differently than you would somebody who's missing a tooth and kind of raggedy on the street. You know, it's just
mhm.
reality.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's also a little bit about put togetherness. Like
Okay, sure.
the advantage of just caring a little bit more about your looks is crazy. So I think, like, for instance, there's one thing about being there's like a proven concept of put togetherness, which basically means like you're less likely to be the subject of a robbery, a street robbery, for instance,
Sure,
if you look
yeah.
more put together. It communicates some sort of competence that then potential criminals subconsciously consider within like a split seconds, whether or not you're victim material, right?
Yeah.
And I think like there's so many small biases, and once again, like, we're chatting shit here at the end of the podcast, but like
Yeah.
this is a big one that I took away from Danny Kahneman's work as a Nobel laureate economist slash psychologist that recently died at the age, I think, of 92, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow.
Um,
R.I.P.
folks might be aware of his work. His book, Thinking Fast and Slow, was pretty big. Which basically outlined the different types of like thinking, even though like it is an inexact science, but it's a useful tool to think about, you know, the conscious and the unconscious. They're sort of adjacent, system 1 and system 2. But I for me it was even more formative to see nudge. Nudge was a big one for me, which was, let me bring it up just to no. Yes, that's nudge. That is actually not by Kahneman, I think, right? Was it by Kahneman?
Correct. He blurbed it on the title.
Right, yes. But that is sort of in the similar vein in terms of like how to influence people positively with some subconscious chicanery, but also what kind of things subconsciously determine us. So if you want some book recommendations, I liked Nudge. I liked Thinking Fast and Slow. What was the second book that Kahneman wrote? That was sort of like a follow up from the find that. Wait.
Noise?
Sorry?
Noise.
Noise, yes. The Noise was also a really good one. That's the one I was thinking about, not necessarily Nudge, even though Nudge was also good. Noise is basically about like an investigation of various inherent biases. So, for instance, punishments are harsher if the judge did not have dinner yet, or rather lunch yet, before the sentencing. Crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
then part of the what constitutes noise in everyday life, right? As a psychological subject. Just looking through. I think there's a lot of noise in terms of like now interweaving so many concepts, because once again, from noise I'm going to signal in the noise. That's
kind of where I thought you were going with it, but
yeah, no, it's not equivalent, but yeah, like those are a couple of books I read a couple of years ago that I was kind of influenced by. I think, yeah, no, I that's also just revisiting recently, kind of honoring the death of Daniel Kahneman and listening to some old podcasts of his. This is just good to revisit. I feel like I'm getting also up there in age where previously I felt like I had close to perfect memory about things that I cared about. Now I actually forget things.
Yeah.
And actually, like, there's actual value in rereading stuff. Like previously, for instance, like I would read a book and I would know the contents of the book well enough in order to the point where I could reinterpret them through life experiences. Like I would, for instance, have like Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, right? And I would read it as an early 20-year-old, and then without rereading, I would still sometimes come back in my mind to certain concepts conveyed and have them illuminated through life experience. I didn't necessarily have to reread them. Now it's almost inevitable. Like that, we're just like, I'm succumbing to entropy. I'm losing to the environment. Like,
aren't we all though? I think Hess's Siddhartha is like such a tuning fork though. Like you can always kind of come back to it.
Yeah.
And just like
it definitely hits differently depending on where you are in life.
That's, 100%. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Any kind of like new life experience, you can kind of come back to it and find, a new tone in the book that is weirdly resonant, even though you've read it a couple times. I've definitely given it a flip through, once or twice, and it's been a different experience each time. So yeah, that would, I can't say that I'm as academic as Yiska, but I have read Siddhartha and would recommend.
Have you read Steppenwolf?
Excuse me?
Steppenwolf? I'm not sure how you... Steppenwolf? I definitely... That's... No, it's another Hesse book, and I think it's the more well-known one. I think you
really?
probably enjoyed that one.
Okay.
I think you would actually greatly enjoy that one. Yeah, let me know if you ever... I'm currently still trying to get my head through Escher Escher Gödelbach. Is it that? Escher Gödel... Yes, Gödel Escherbach. That's the direction. And then, I'm terrible. I'm reading 10 billion books at the same time, always. Then, like, on runs, I'm listening to different Audible books. I'm also, like, not completely through Three Body Problem yet, so I'm getting there. What else am I? I greatly enjoyed... This is maybe one that you also would like. The audiobook of The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, I really enjoyed as well.
Okay, interesting. That was definitely, when he was running around promoting that was definitely something that I was like, this is either going to be an absolute nothing burger or very interesting. I feel like he's one of those ones where it's very binary on like the opinions that he either has or just doesn't. But that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. The fact that it has your approval is high praise.
There was an interesting one a while ago. I think I took that up based on the recommendation of Eric, which was Range, My Generalist Time in a Specialized World. It's basically about like the application, like if you're coming from one domain you have the ability to like map on solutions from that domain onto a new domain. And the more domains you have expertise in, the more you have solutions to, figure out alternative ways to go about it, right? Like whether, like if you know biology, then like if you get into finance, you might have the ability to biomimicry in some way and to figure out solutions that way, right? And the book is pretty good about providing some evidence for that, even though I'm not too it's one of those that doesn't feel so hyper scientific, but like it was nice enough to get some boost in confidence, because I'm generally also not, I'm more of a generalist than anything else. And there's another one that I'm probably just going to read for encouragement that I'm looking forward to. It's not released yet. It's about late bloomers. Like what's his name? Henry Oliver, I think is his name. Henry Oliver. It's a book I'm looking forward to. Second Act: What Late Bloomers Can Tell You About Reinventing Your Life. That's one thing that it's coming out in early May. I mean, most people won't get any use out of the German books I recently read. Why We Sleep was decent. Behave by Sapolsky. I mean, all of Sapolsky's books I just devoured up. I think if you want to get into Sapolsky and want to not be too trodden down by the determinism of it all, I think Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers is the one that's the lightest on it. It's basically like evolutionary psychology. Entangled Life was great. That was about fungi.
Fungi?
Yep. Yeah. This is, and then bunch of stuff on Alan Watts' side. Way of Zen. Yeah, bunch of journalism stuff. That's basically where my reading was over the last 12 months, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Or more.
I need to read more.
18.
It's one of those things that I do, and then it reminds me that I enjoy it.
Yeah, I was bad about being able to read. And I needed to sort of like find that time, and
Yeah.
it is actually kind of a good tool to still get that dopamine flowing, but not have a virtual screen in front of your face, especially if you read physical books. You kind of have to avoid going too hard on the lighting, but it helps falling asleep. Definitely over, looking into your phone, absorbing some blue light and just keeping up.
Sure.
But yeah.
100%. All right. Speaking of being put together, we're going to put together at the end of this podcast. Okay. Before we actually get stunned into another hour of discussing God knows what. We all thank you for listening this far. If you've made it this far, great. Thanks. Appreciate you. Love you. Any send-offs, Yiska?
Nope. I mean, if you made it until here, I hope there were some book ideas in there. If you were looking for anything else, otherwise, like it's kind of, we're slowly ramping up to Dallas. I feel like that's going to be interesting. Esports World Cup, the competition there, is going to be interesting. Also, what it implies about the future of Overwatch. We're kind of holding our breath for China's ability to compete once again. Definitely itching for some Leaf and Gushua. So we'll see.
All right. Well, we're out of here. 3:39 in the books. See you next week.
Peace.